Ladies and gentlemen, Joelle Noyes. Just hand these out. Thanks. I'm having her hand out just CAD. If you guys, you don't need to do it right now. Don't do it right now. But if you guys want to like hear more from Stand to Reason, that's who I'm with. I'd love to just get you guys free resources. We're not asking for your money. We know you have none. It's just an opportunity. These are called solid ground CADs. They're going to be a way that we can send you free material through the mail or through email or whatever you might be. Especially every other month, you'll get uh, a 3,000 word treatment on a culturally relevant issue. Um, but yeah, that's the formality. I do, it's really valuable. But okay, so we talked a little bit. You got a little kind of peek into who I was this morning through the atheist role play. The things you said this morning as an atheist were very much exactly what I would have said uh, as an atheist. Gosh, almost 20 years ago now. It was probably, I think I became a Christian maybe 18, 19 years ago. Um, my story actually stats, well, my story actually stats as all good stories do with I met a girl. Her name's Rihanna. Uh, Rihanna is my now wife, and I need to say something up front. This is not an excuse for you guys to go and find yourself like a pagan to date, and in the hopes of saving him. After I give this talk, most times, especially if my wife's with me, because there'll be a line of young ladies waiting to talk to Rihanna, and all the conversations start with, "So I'm dating this guy. He's really nice, but he's not a Christian." Don't do it. It doesn't work out well. But either way, it did work out in my instance. It was actually my first night in Los Angeles. I had just moved from Washington D.C., where I was working at one of the nation's best law firms. My bags were still in the back of my sister's car. My sister was living in the valley, the San Fernando Valley at the time. She picked me up at the airport and she drove me directly to a party that she was going to, a party. If you guys need me to translate, let me know. Yeah. So, it's gonna thank you. It's gonna actually get, it's gonna get worse because the party was in an apartment building, and, so the party was in an apartment building, but it was on the backside of Los Angeles. Like, if you could picture the LA skyline, I love LA. I absolutely love LA. I think it's getting right now, especially, it's getting a bad rap. But I love LA. I love everything it offers. I love the skyline especially. And I was freshly in the city, just off the airplane, bag still in my back, my sister's car, and I'm up on this balcony. It was a high-rise luxury apartment building, and I'm looking out from the balcony onto the skyline with the ocean right behind the city. If you can picture that, incredible. But in the front door of this apartment walked the most amazing girl I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, she was amazing. Not only was she beautiful, but the way that she carried herself was just so attractive. I mean, it was like she wasn't like cocky or anything, but she was just confident. Like she knew who she was, and she was also fairly popular. Like everybody at the party kind of wanted to touch base with her a little bit. And my sister had been talking me up. She'd be saying, "Oh, my older brother's gonna be moving to California. You should get to know him or whatever." So she wanted to come and meet me, the new guy, right? And I'm standing on the balcony over here, and she walks as quick as she can walk, and she walked smack right into the screen door. And the guys, no, it was actually incredible. It was incredible. She like bounced off of that sucker. She fell on her butt. She had her hands back like this. She flung her dark brown hair back and she had me right then and there because not she wasn't like embarrassed by this either. She let out the most amazing laugh I've ever heard. Like she acted like it was just like natural for her. In fact, it's turned out that this is like natural for her. This is like this is like her thing. She like bounces in the screen doors, but it's not only hers, it's like hereditary. My Phoebe, my second oldest, she inherited it. Like she walks in the doors all the time. It's like a thing. And anyways, I told her I loved her that night. She was sitting right next to her boyfriend. And I remember thinking, like, what? Like, rise up. Like what are you gonna do about this? Because that's the type of guy I was. Honestly, like I was super bold. I did pretty much whatever I wanted, um, and suffered the consequences if there were any. And I'm kind of the same way today. My affections have changed. I'm still bold. I'm still direct in my thoughts. I don't hide what I'm thinking very well. It's just my affections have changed. And Ariana, she eventually dropped that loser and started dating me. And we started dating. And after we were dating for a couple months, she said something that would change our relationship uh, forever. You know, uh, she on one day we are just hanging out. She said, "John, I have something to tell you that I'm a Christian. And my response was like, no, you can't be one of those Christians because, well, you guys saw the atheist John this morning. I had no respect for Christians. None. I thought Christians were weak-minded, hypocritical. I thought that they didn't really believe in anything because it was true. Maybe it got them some comfort or something like this, but they didn't. They certainly didn't live in reality. I didn't think. And actually, I think I alluded to this morning. If I were found out you were Christian, like I really want to take you out to coffee. I would pursue you. I was evangelical in my atheism. Yeah, I wanted to see you become a non-Christian. So I'd say, let's sit down in the coffee because I need to tell you how stupid your worldview is. And it was no different than with Rihanna either. Like when I was dating Rihanna, because I was falling in love with this girl, and I couldn't marry this girl because she was a Christian, and I was not going to raise my kids Christianly. That's child abuse. Exposing your children, indoctrinating them into this type of system of belief. So I spent a lot of my time arguing with Rihanna, and I would say things to her like, I remember cooking her dinner, and I remember saying things to her like, Rihanna, I thought that you were an intelligent human being. I thought you were smart. Are you telling me you believe in Adam and Eve? That's stupid. Nobody believes in those ancient Bronze Age myth figures. Wait, I thought that you're an intelligent human being. Are you telling me, Rihanna, you don't believe in Darwinian evolution? Everybody believes in Darwinian evolution. It's a scientific fact, just like gravity. Does that sound familiar? Have you guys ever heard these types of things before? Well, this is and Rihanna, she didn't have answers for me. It's not like she was a trained apologist. She was a typical Christian. Actually, if she was here, she'd say two things. First, she'd say I was a rock bottom, and I mean, what guy doesn't want to be some girl's rock bottom, right? I mean, I take pride in that, you know. Uh, but what she means by that is that she was on a journey just like I was. She had always been a Christian. Rihanna has an amazing story, and she's always trusted in Christ. But at this moment when she met me, she was at a low point. She had stopped going to church. She wasn't really pursuing Christ. She was pursuing other things like a career and things like this. She would also tell you that she left every date crying, and for two reasons. One is I was borderline mean. Like the things I would say to her were mean. They weren't nice. I wasn't trying to move towards her and understand her. I was trying to squash this Christian worldview out of her. But then also she would say that she knew the relationship couldn't go anywhere. And I knew the relationship couldn't go anywhere. I wasn't going to marry a Christian. She wasn't going to marry an atheist. So we're stuck in this thing. And then one day, actually, Rihanna was like really brave. And I'm so glad that she was. She was super brave. And she ended up asking me if I would go to church with her. And I've done crazier things for the affections of a woman than go to church, guys. I mean, she hangs out with me Saturday. I'll go wherever she want on Sunday, and there's a few things about this. Now, I want you guys just for a minute to kind of put yourself in my atheist shoes for a second. I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I didn't know any Christians growing up, none. Nobody ever talked to Jesus about me. Like Christmas for us was lights, presents, Santa Claus. Easter was bunnies, candy, eggs, things like this. I maybe had some Catholic friends, but they were culturally Catholic. They didn't really take their worldview seriously. I had never been to church, ever. I was 26 or 25 or 26 at the time. Never been to church. I got saved in a charismatic church in Studio City. So just put yourself, this is the context, put yourself in my position. So Rihanna asked me to go to church with her. I said, fine, whatever. I'll hang out with you crazy Christians for a minute. And I went with her to the church. And I remember pulling up, it was a church right off of Ventura in Lancashire. And something stuck out to me as we pulled up, the windows rolled down because it's a beautiful day in Southern California. I heard music like blaring out of the church. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really loud. And I started listening to it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like good music. Like it sounds good, because it's in Studio City. So the people leading the worship band were super talented. And then I go into the building and I start listening to the words of the song. And it's like about blood, like washing you clean. And I'm like, well, that's kind of impossible. How can blood wash you clean? It doesn't make you more dirty. Like it's strange. And then why are you singing about blood? And what are you talking about zombies? Like this zombie guy, Jesus, who was dead, but now he's alive and now he's alive in you. Like this is so strange. But then more than this, not just the lyrics of the song, it's charismatic church. So over in the corner here, there's the woman spinning during worship. Or over in this corner here, there's a group of people prophesying in tongues. And I remember thinking, you Christians are nuts. Like you're absolutely out of your gourds. Like there's a huge problem here. And I felt like I was the only ones that saw the problem. Like I'm with all these people and you're thinking it's normal. There's nothing normal happening here. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. And But I kept kind of going back to church with Rihanna, and I started noticing a few other things, right? So it was strange. To be honest, guys, church is still strange to me a little bit. Like it just is. I think Christian we're weird. I mean, we go for hours on end every week to listen to a guy speak and to sing songs. Like there's no other people group who does this, right? You know? And then we give our money. Sometimes we give it without people asking. I mean, some of us, most of us give our money, you know? And it's we're strange, like, and that's fine. But like more than just the strangeness stuck out to me is as I got to know some of the people in the church, some barriers started getting breaking, like, well, they were like just shattering. Like I thought Christians was stuffy and lame, but I started meeting some people who were really cool. You know, I met a guy who we just had lunch with in Texas 2 weeks ago, Bradley, he's a professional breakdancer. Now he's a professional choreographer. Like he does in Hollywood. He like the Biggest Showman in La La Land. He did choreographing for, and he started a breakdance group called the Groovaloos. Like super cool guy, you know. And then I got to meet my friend Todd, who I saw same trip. Todd was the guy who had me over his house, and he like put up with me. Like when I say put up with me, guys, I was in his apartment building in Studio City, and I wasn't just pro-choice. I was pro-abortion. Meaning I used to defend the position that I think it should be completely legal and acceptable for you to kill your kid up to the age of 2. I would have argued that because that's what Peter Singer defends, and Peter Singer is one of the world's leading ethicists. He teaches at like Princeton or somewhere today. He's written on it. And I would argue that, and Todd and I were getting these like yelling matches with each other, but he kept inviting me over, you know, and like who does that? He was like really great. And then Rihanna, she wanted to become a member of this church. So she asked if I wanted to go to membership classes with her. And I remember thinking like, absolutely. Like I spent more time with her. And I thought like what I was going to be doing in these membership classes, kind of peeking behind the Christian curtain to witness like Christians in their natural habitat, you know, to really start to pick apart their worldview. I was like, I'm going to gain some insight here. Like I'm going where no atheist has ever gone before. You know, like the Captain Kirk of atheists, you know? And so I remember going to the classes, and the culmination of this membership process is you met with the pastor, and there's like an interview. And Rihanna and I went, and Rihanna sat down and I sat down, and she shared her story, which is incredible. And then the pastor looked at me and he said, "Hey, John, what brings you in today?" And I said, "Man, I'm so glad you asked." You see, I had spent weeks doing research. Like I had arguments written down out. I had them printed off the computer. I had evidence as to why you can't trust the Bible and why Jesus is just a rehatching of an ancient myth story like Dionysus or any of these things, ancient Greek myth, God. I had things on carbon dating and evolution and all this stuff. And I started hammering this pastor. And I had in my mind, if I could just debate this pastor out of his faith, like it'd be like a huge win for atheists. It'd be like a notch on my atheist belt. Like I could see LA Times headlines, right? Like atheist destroys pastor. I'm like a hero. So I started asking him all my questions. And some of them he answered, not many to my satisfaction, if I'm honest. I'm still really good friends with Pastor Dave, by the way. He's a huge influence in my life. Um, at the end of the meeting, he stands up. We stand up. He hugs Rihanna and he says, "Rihanna, we'd love to offer you membership to the church." And then Pastor Dave, he takes my hand in his. I'll never forget this. He takes my hand in his and he's shaking my hand and he says, and he's looking in my eyes and he says, "Hey, John, we have enough members right now. Thanks for coming." Completely rejected, which was perfect. And I know what some of you guys are thinking, right? So some of you guys are thinking, like, how could he reject you? You're like a work in progress. Why wouldn't he invite you into the fold? And God's going to work on you here. And he could have done that. But if he did that, it would have, for me, in one way or another, confirmed a lot of what I thought about Christians was true. I would have thought he just wants my butt in his seat. He wants my buck in his coffee. He doesn't really care about me, what I believe, or more importantly, he doesn't care about what's true. You see, I've always been a pursuer of truth. Truth for me is like the ultimate ethic. I don't want to believe it if it's not true. And even as an atheist, I saw these things. But the key thing to this meeting is as he's rejecting me, Pastor Dave, he's shaking my hand, he turns me around and he pulls off of the shelf that behind him, or behind me rather, a book, and he hands it to me. And he says, "Hey, John, I don't think I did a great job answering a lot of your questions tonight. I'm sorry. But I think you'll find the beginnings to some of those answers in this book. Would you read it?" I said, "Absolutely." So I read it. It was a book on Christian apologetics. Now, you guys know what apologetics is, yes? Simply defending the faith, right? So I read that book cover to cover, and then I read it again, and then I read it again. And then I read another book on Christian apologetics and another book on Christian apologetics. And at first, what it started out as is I was trying to interact with the best and the brightest, supposedly, of the Christian worldview in order to disprove it. It's not like I read this one book and was all of a sudden convinced. I was gaining this information, trying to knock things down. And then I kept doing a deep dive into Christian apologetics. And around the same time, my future in-laws, they gave me a New Believers Bible. And it's NLT translation. It's like a study Bible, edited by Greg Laurie. Super easy to read. Like, really, I don't want to say dumbed down, because it's not dumbed down. It's just really accessible. Like cornerstones of the faith. Who is Jesus? What is sin? Where is heaven? Like things like this. And I read that Bible cover to cover from Genesis to Revelation over the course of 3 months. You see, I didn't drive at the time. I was taking a train from Hollywood, where I lived, to downtown, where my law firm was. And I was reading that every morning, every evening. I was reading it every lunchtime. Every break I had, I was just diving in at first to disprove it. And then something else started to happen. Like, I was interacting with this Christian apologetic stuff, and God was kind of softening my intellect through that. And then I started interacting with the Word of God, and in that interaction with the Word of God, He was softening my hat. And then as I was living out in the world, I noticed something. I noticed that I was bumping into parts of the world around me that atheism, my naturalism, couldn't answer, but Christian theism could. And this was a huge problem for me. And so guys, I alluded to this earlier today. Like, reality, reality is the way the world really is. The world is a certain way. And reality is that thing that you bump into when you don't live according to it. And if we pay attention, for any amount of time, as we go in and out all over the place, whatever it is that we're doing, we bump into certain facets of reality. And what was happening with me is I was realizing that there were parts of the world that I couldn't explain from a purely naturalistic perspective. I said earlier that naturalism is the idea that everything that exists is the product of a purely physical process. And I couldn't explain this, specifically 3 facets. So I just want to talk to you about these 3 paths, these 3 bumps of reality that I bumped into. And sometimes some of these really hurt. And this is stuff, guys, just like I'm just saying up front, if you're talking to people who aren't believers, these are fantastic principles to bring up, because I think our Christian theism, our Christian worldview, can actually answer them better than an atheistic worldview. And the first is the bump of everything, or the reality of everything stuff. And it's simple. Sometimes we make things way too complicated. We don't need to make things complicated. It starts like this. Stuff exists. Stuff exists. The chairs you're sitting on, the pens you're writing with, the pencils, my computer, my clothes. Thank God my clothes exist. They exist. But the question that we need to ask is, where did the stuff come from? The chair, my clothes, the podium, my computer, your pens, they all have explanations as to where they came from. But the bigger question is, where'd all the stuff come from? Everything, the universe. What caused the beginning of the universe? What caused all the stuff? Not only is this not complicated, guys, it's also not controversial. Like, there's only 2 options. Either something caused everything, or nothing caused everything. And think about this. Like, for me as an atheist, this put me in a really difficult position, because I didn't want to say something caused everything, because the moment that I say something caused everything, there are certain qualities that have to be true about that something. Like, for example, that something has to be incredibly powerful, immensely creative. It has to be at least independent of its own creation. It has to have volition and will, and before you know it, that something starts to look like something specific. What's it start to look like? It starts to look like God. And I did not want to say God. So instead, I wanted to say nothing. But who in his right mind says everything comes from nothing? Think about this. And we talked about this again earlier, guys. This is Lawrence Krauss. Everybody say, hi, Lawrence. That's Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss is one of the top physicists in the world today. He wrote a book called Something from Nothing. And what he posits through the whole book is, he says that everything, the universe, came from a quantum vacuum. But is that nothing? I'm talking about the philosophical nothing. That which rocks dream about. At least that's according to Aristotle. Nothing is that which rocks dream about. Well, what do rocks dream about, guys? Why? Because they're rocks. Absolutely. But as an atheist, I wanted to say everything came from the dreams of rocks. You can't do that. And not only that, guys, like again, this is not too difficult to understand. I think about living like what the question we need to be asking is what system of belief, what worldview best explains reality, the world around us? That it's simple. Which one has the best answers? Which one best explains where everything came from? That's what we're asking. Naturalism or Christian theism? Well, do we live in a world where we experience nothing producing something? I mean, think about it. You guys, think about living in that world. Like you could be driving down the mountain here, cruising along, and all of a sudden, out of nothing, a cow just pops into existence, right? Or try doing science. I mean, try observing the cosmos above, and out of nothing, all these stars and systems, planets would just be popping into and out of existence from nothing. Is that what we see? Or go into the macro level where it's or the micro level rather into your skin cells, and we're trying to diagnose cancer, and cancer's just there 1 second, gone the next. There 1 second, gone the next. Is that the world that we live in? No. This goes against our genuine, like our general intuitions about reality. It's like this, okay. Um, we were in California Adventure. Have you guys ever been to California Adventure? Oh, I love California Adventure. I love Disneyland. It's so much fun. My favorite part of Disneyland and California Adventure are the lines. I love standing in line. Why do you guys think I like standing in line? Oh, yeah. Yeah, captive audience. Like if you're standing in line for 20 minutes or more, like nobody's getting out of that line, no matter who you're standing there. So I'm that weird dude like that's just talking to people around me just about Jesus and about worldview stuff and about fun stuff. Like that's what I love to do. So I would stand in line all night, all day if I could. But my kids like to ride the rides. On this particular day, we had just gotten like this brand new stroller. It was an oh dude, the stroller was so rad. It could hold like 3 kids at once and it rolled really easy because all the wheels are inflated and they're big. And so I parked this stroller next to like the sea of other strollers at the California Adventure, right? And I packed this thing and I push it in and we wait in line. I'm talking to the guy behind me about what I don't really remember, something fun. And all of a sudden we hear bang, bang, like that. Some of you guys just woke up. Welcome back. This is Joshua Wilderness Institute. Uh, you know, you've been here for like 7 months already. No, so we hear these two big, huge bangs, and what do you think? What was their reaction? Yeah. What do you think they were asking? What question? What was that? Nobody was standing there like there were those two bangs out of nothing. Happens all the time. No, everybody was like, "What was that?" Actually, what they were asking is what caused that. And we found out what caused that. When we got off the ride, we go over to the stroller that I had packed. What I had done is that morning I'd overinflated the stroller tires and I packed it in the hot California sun. So both our real tires on our stroller popped that day. So there I am, like lugging kids around Disneyland, 4 of them, holding them. We know how the world is. We don't get something from nothing. But the problem is with naturalism. The reason why this is a problem is because naturalism, all it has to stat with is nothing. But Christian theism has more than nothing. Christian theism has an uncaused cause. You guys picking up what I'm throwing down? Are we good? Are we ready for the next one? So this is the bump of everything. The bump of stuff. Where did everything come from? The reality that everything exists. Christian theism has way better explanatory power than naturalism does. This is the next issue of reality that I bumped into. It's the most difficult. It still is the most difficult for me. And this is the reality of evil or bad or good, the difference between the two. Um, as an atheist, I knew certain things were wrong. Like, for example, I knew what happened in the furnaces of Auschwitz was wrong. But just like with the bump of stuff, that where everything came from, we have to ask a question. What did I mean when I said something was wrong? Well, what I meant, it was wicked. It ought not happen. It was out here. There's an object of reality that actually exists that's evil. It's out there, and what I wasn't saying like it was against my personal opinion or personal preference. I wasn't saying like, what those Nazis did was kinda taboo. I was saying it was fundamentally wrong. But this is a huge problem for the atheist. It's a huge problem for the atheist because in order to say something is wrong, you have to have we went over this morning, you have to have an objective standard to judge wrong from right. And on atheism, I'm that standard. On atheism, I'm the master of my own ship. There's nothing above me. So really what I was saying when I was objecting on moral grounds to anything, it was the same type of statement as saying, "I like chocolate chip ice cream." I couldn't justify these things, and this became a reality to me as I got to visit Auschwitz. Has anybody here ever been to Auschwitz? Do you guys know what Auschwitz is? Please say yes, please say yes. Okay, good. So the Nazi concentration camp, I got to go. It was actually a really great trip. I was in Germany, Czech Republic, and Poland. And I was doing this. I was teaching apologetics. It was so great. And one day I took off and I hopped on a tour bus to go to Auschwitz. And I kept pick up this tour bus at a hotel. And when I get on, oh my gosh, guys, I was on this bus with like 20 other people, and they were all young men and they're all Irish guys. And they were like exactly what you'd picture as like young Irish guys would be like mini Conor McGregors. Like, dude, they were like kicking the bejeebas out of each other on the bus. Like it was really strange. So like yelling, like throwing each other over the seats. Super awkward because I'm a girl dad, so there's no physical activity in my house. It's like there's none of that wrestling stuff. So I'm like sitting in the front of the bus, like looking to the bus driver to like protect me. And they're totally like throwing each other in the hall, like down the aisle, and we're getting off the bus, and I'm just sitting there watching them go, and they're like kicking each other down the stairs. And then we get to the front gates of Auschwitz, and what do you think happened to their behavior? Completely changed. Nobody had to come up to them and ask them to be quiet. Nobody had to be like, "Hey, stop hitting each other." They just knew. Because when you're standing before the iron gates that say life unworthy of life, and you're about to walk over that threshold, there's a moral weight that everybody knows about. Everybody. It was a beautiful July day, not a cloud in the sky, 85 degrees, gorgeous, hundreds of people around me, and you could hear a pin drop. And as we toured, I was confronted with the evil that happened there, and some of the exhibits stick out more than others in my mind. This one in particular, I was standing in a it was like, well, we used to house Jews ultimately, but there was a glass top case from probably in between these two poles. It was like a table with a glass top on it, and in the glass, under the glass, were children's playthings, toys. And some of the toys really stuck out to me because I am a girl dad, so the girl toys really stuck out to me. On the screen here, this is a picture that I took of a porcelain doll. You can make out the heads kind of shadowed, some of the faces up there, the feet, shoes, the hair is up there. And the reason why this stands out is because this was a toy confiscated from a young girl. You see, in Nazi Germany, if young girls made the journey on a transport car, cattle car, if they made the journey from wherever it was that they were being shipped to the gates of Auschwitz, right away they were sorted left, not right, straight to the gas chambers. Because on the economy of Nazi Germany, little girls are worthless. Straight to death. And this is a picture of one of those gas chambers. There were two at Auschwitz that mirrored each other. What Nazis would do is they would pack that room first full of women and children, then the handicapped, um, and they would pop a canister of gas. They would throw it in there. They would close the doors, and they would listen and wait. On average, it took 13 minutes for everybody inside to suffocate to death. When the screaming stopped, when the clawing at the door and the walls stopped, they would open up the doors, they would air out the room, and they would remove those now lifeless corpses, and they would put them on one of these. There's two mirroring each other again. I don't know what to call them other than sleds. Like this is a big sled. What they'd put the body here, and they would ram this thing into here, and burning in that is a furnace that raged 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Those furnaces, the fires within them would consume those corpses in a matter of a minute or two. And then now the ashes from those now lifeless bodies consumed by the fire would fly out of this smokestack. Awful stuff. But maybe compounding it is what the tour guide told me as we were talking about this outside. If you go beyond this tree here in the corner, if you go past that tree about 300 yards, you got to go over the electrified fence. You got to go past the razor wire fence. There was a house there, a big house, a mansion, a beautiful brick house. That house remained occupied for the entirety that Nazi Germany was running Auschwitz. Never once did the occupants of that home complain about the screams. They didn't complain about the smell of burning flesh. They did complain. What they complained about were the ashes of those consumed bodies falling on their swimming pool during summer, ruining their summertime patties. Who does that? Who in their right mind says that that's okay? Well, as a culture and a society, what happened with Nazi Germany, I mean, it's history, right? It's amazing. There was a huge manhunt, as the Allied forces came in and liberated the concentration camps. For the first time, humanity saw the inhumanity behind those walls. And there was a huge manhunt hunting down the people who were in charge of all of this. And we sought to bring them to justice in the Nuremberg trials. Have you guys ever studied the Nuremberg trials? Yeah. So they brought them to Nuremberg in front of a world court. And does anybody know what the defense the Nazi Germans brought up through their lawyers? They appealed to relativism. They said, I was just following orders and this is just part of our culture. In our society, it was okay to do what we were doing. We didn't violate any law that we had on the books. And the court said, absolutely not. They said, this is a great quote. They said that there's a law above the law. We intuitively know this, guys. It doesn't need to get more complex than this. We know certain things are wrong. That's why we cry out for justice in the face of injustice. That's why when we see atrocities, there's a human move towards that. It's not that complicated. This is what I'm talking about here is the difference between, what I'm saying here is that the problem of evil, things actually being wrong, requires what's called objective morality. By what standard? You know, and I want you guys to see something super important here. This means in order for someone to even bring up the problem of pain, suffering, and evil as an objection to God, they have to appeal to an objective moral standard. Any atheist who does that doesn't have the legs to stand on. In fact, as an atheist, this was a huge problem for me because I soon realized that bringing up the problem of evil to get rid of the existence of God does nothing to solve the problem. I still had the problem of evil and suffering. I was just getting rid of one of the possible solutions. Do you see what I'm saying? I was objecting to the existence of God based on all this evil out there. But say getting rid of God, does that solve the problem of evil? We still have the problem of evil out there. You're just getting rid of I think the only solution, by the way. And then you start to think of this in greater terms. From a Christian perspective, if you think about it, our entire worldview, our entire story is about the problem of evil. The problem starts in the first book, chapter 3, and gets resolved 66 books later. The whole thing, we can describe where evil comes from. We know what evil is, and then we see the resolution to the problem in the very end. It offers a better explanation. So, but as an atheist, I had to say that evil was out there some way, and that was a huge problem for me. You know, it was a huge problem for me. I knew we didn't sin against just particles. We sinned against people. Those people are meaningful, which we're going to get to in a minute. So just like with the bump of stuff or the everything, the reality of everything, every worldview needs to give an adequate explanation of the moral depth to reality, the way the world really is. And then I also realized that this isn't even a problem for the Christian. It's a problem for me, but not the Christian, because then a Christian has an adequate explanation and a solution. But there's also more. I wasn't just wrestling with the idea that there was an objective oughtness to the world. And as I struggled with like good and bad and right and wrong, as I came to the conclusion that everything around me had to come from somewhere or someone, I bumped into another part of reality that I really couldn't explain. This is really where the rubber meets the road for me. I want to talk about the reality of me, us, people. I want to talk to you guys about the soul. Um, I don't think we talk as Christians enough about the soul, the existence of the soul, and I think we should, because I think this is a huge feature of reality that we can explain, but the atheist or the naturalist can't. And what I mean by the soul is that it's this immaterial aspect of ourselves. Some of us want to call it consciousness, maybe to get rid of the spiritual implications. Um, it's that thing that you think to, you introspect to, and you're constantly aware of it every waking moment of every single day. And there's three parts of the soul I want to talk about. And the first is that that souls are real. Our souls are real. We all have one, and I can prove it to you. You guys want me to prove it to you? I can prove it to you. Okay. Have you guys ever had a song stuck in your head? We don't talk about. You're so welcome. That's going to be up there all night long. Now, if you want to get that stupid song out of your head, do you split open your scalp, crack open your skull, and sift through your brain? Why not? Because you'll die. Like, no, and also doesn't exist there. Like that song doesn't exist in your brain. It exists in your immaterial aspect of yourself. Or how about this? Everybody, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Don't fall asleep, but close your eyes. Okay, I want you guys to picture the greenest grass field you've ever seen. Keep your eyes closed until I ask you to open them again. But when you can see that green grass field, would you just raise your hand for me? Okay, put your hands down. I want you, as you're walking through this green grass field, I want you to bend down and pick up a clump of that grass. And I want you to feel that grass in your hands. When you can feel that grass and you pick it up, can you just raise your hand for me? Okay, put your hands down. I want you to roll that grass between your forefinger and your thumb, and I want you to smell that fresh cut grass smell. When you can smell that grass, would you raise your hands for me? Okay, put your hands down. Now open your eyes. I have a question. Is that piece of grass or that clump of grass that you were holding in your hands, is it closer to your left ear or your right? You guys know your left. Some of you, huh? Yes. It's like a huh kind of question. It doesn't exist in the closer, it doesn't manifest itself physically. It's actually a category mistake to ask that question. It's like asking the question, what does the note C sharp taste like? I know some of you are like sour grape, and it's like, no, it doesn't taste, because we're trying to apply a quality to something that doesn't work. And the grass, the grass doesn't exist physically. Like, I can't look in your brain and find that grass. How do I know this? Because it's different than the juices flowing around in there. Because in order for two things to be identical to each other, they have to share all the same properties. There's a greenness to that grass that you saw. There's a smell and a weight to it. And notice the power of this. It exists in your soul and your mind. Notice you can interact with your senses there. Almost all of you could see it. You could see that grass. Most of you could feel it. Many of you could smell it. I bet you some of you knuckleheads could have tasted it if I asked you to. You can engage all your senses in your soul. That's incredible. This is a huge problem for the atheist. Do you guys know the name Alex O'Connor? Alex O'Connor, he's fantastic. I love this. I would love to sit down with Alex O'Connor, not on camera, but he's like he's probably the world's most famous atheist now. And he's got a huge YouTube following and stuff. My boss, Greg Kokel, was on Diary of a CEO with him. And great conversation they had. But Alex O'Connor admits the existence of a soul is a problem. Existence of consciousness is a huge problem for the atheist because it's real. And we know it's independent. It's not maybe independent, but it's different than the brain. And we just proved that. Are you guys following me? Yeah, you have a question? Yeah, sure. So there's a correlation, like we can say, so check this out. This is so cool, right? So there's definitely a correlation. Like we can say, I can sit down and I can say, okay, close your eyes. I want you to picture your mom doing dishes. You can picture her doing dishes. What's she wearing? Pink shirt. Yeah, what soap? Yeah. Yeah, it's because that's all we know, right? Because nobody uses that Pall Mall of stuff. It doesn't even sound like a soap. No, but notice this. Notice this. This is an important point. We can hook up diodes to your head here and detect that there's brain activity. But without a translator we don't know what's going on. We know you're feeling certain things. You can hook something up to my brain, and I can close my eyes and I can imagine something, and you can tell me, "Oh, this he's activating this part of his brain," which is like kind of the love and affection part, but you can't say, "I'm thinking of my daughter Joelle." You need somebody to tell you that, because it's not all the same qualities. You just saw your mom in a pink blouse. The brain juices don't have a pinkness to them. Does that make sense? So don't let the atheist get away with that. Yeah. Yeah, I said that was an illusion. This is really good. So I would say it doesn't make sense. That's what's called a tautology. So, I'd ask the atheist, "What do you mean? What's an illusion?" An illusion is when your mind is being appealed falsely to. It's completely circular. In order to have an illusion, we have to preconceive that there's a mind to appeal falsely to. So, is it your mind that's appealing falsely to your mind? Like, it doesn't work. So you just ask that simple question, "What is an illusion?" And then you realize without a soul, we don't have illusions, because you need a mind and something to process this stuff through. Does that make sense? Yeah, great question. So souls are real. We all have them. We interact with them. But more than that, guys, souls are special. Souls are special. We all know human beings are special. Again, this is why when we see a violation out there of injustice, we cry out for justice. But as an atheist, I couldn't ground this on my worldview. And this is really where my struggle came in. Um, you see, atheism ultimately reduces people to cosmic junk. And this isn't me. Don't believe me just because I'm saying this. Go read the atheists. Cosmos series on PBS, right? So you have um who's the most famous atheist? He's Sagan. Carl Sagan. He says this. He says the cabin in our teeth and our apple pies are all made in the interiors of star stuff. We are all made of star stuff. And it sounds like so poetic. Oh, it's so nice and completely stupid. Because if you think about it, like, what's that mean? Like, what are the logical implications of that? If we're just a random quantification of star stuff, if we're just moist robots, meat suits in motion, where do we derive purpose or meaning from? Why is one person, why are people more valuable than cockroaches? Why do we gas cockroaches and not Jews? Because we know intuitively that human beings are special. Why? Well, it's because it's the type of being we are. And that has to do with the type of soul that we have. And I knew this. I like I mean better than most. As an atheist, I speak a lot on suicide. All over the world, I speak on suicide. It's my number one requested talk, actually. And you can pray for me. It's really hard. And I remember when I share this in my suicide talk. I remember when I was an atheist in Washington, D.C., I was walking home from my law office through the streets of D.C., beautiful night, and my phone rang in my pocket. And I pick it up, and it's my sister, and her name's Katrina. I call her Kay, and I pick it up, and I say, "Hey, Kay, what's up?" And she's sobbing on the other end of the phone, sobbing. And whoa, what's going on? Like, slow down. What's going on? And she gets through her sob. Makes out the words, "Ronzo killed himself." Ronzo was a mutual friend that we had in high school, and she had just gotten word that he died by suicide. This is my response. As an atheist, out of my worldview, this is what happened. I said to her, "Oh, well, I guess Ronzo couldn't take the heat, so he got out the kitchen. Life goes on." You see, Ronzo was just a random amalgam of star stuff. His star stuff was just being rearranged, most likely in the digestive tracts of worms. Who cares? That's naturalism. Again, don't believe me. Read Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins, who wrote The God Delusion. We were talking about this at dinner or lunch at some point today. Somebody brought up The God Delusion. In that book, he says that the universe that we observe has precisely the qualities that we should expect. If there's at bottom no design, no purpose, no morality, no right, no wrong, no justice, nothing but pitiless indifference. You see, when you start reading the atheists like Thomas Hobbes in Leviathan, where he says life is solitary, poor, brutish, and nasty, this is what atheism gets us. We get to the life devoid of meaning and purpose. There's nothing special about the human being. But the problem is does that line up with the way the world is? This wasn't the testimony of my soul. When I was at home under the weight of my comforter in the dead of night, I knew human beings were special. I knew we ought not violate them. I knew that because I wasn't running around violating people. I knew that because when I was violated, I knew it was wrong. You see, we all have to live in this world. This is a huge issue, a huge problem for the naturalist. So souls are real, souls are special, and lastly, souls are broken. You see, my conscience, my soul testified to the knowledge that not only was the brokenness out there, guys, I was so quick to point out all the brokenness out there, all of it. But then I realized that that brokenness that was out there was in here. And as an atheist, what do we do with that brokenness? It's even more than that. I speak all over the world, all over the country, everywhere. And like on college campuses, at churches, to secular audiences, to Christian audiences. And there's a single thread that runs through everybody. This has just been my experience. Maybe it's anecdotal, maybe not. But when pressed and I have the time to actually talk to somebody, every single person I talk to has some semblance of a feeling of guilt. Why? Like, if we're just molecules in motion, like, why do we feel guilt? What are we feeling guilty for? And can I just propose something? Can I just propose something, guys? Maybe the reason why we feel guilty is because we are. You see, maybe we know that we've put ourselves on the wrong end of a standard that's outside of ourselves. Maybe we feel guilty because we are guilty. You know, and when I became aware of my brokenness, it felt. I remember it felt like God woke. He woke up my conscience, not all at once, but incrementally. I think if he woke it all at once, it would be completely crushing. Like I would let slip the desire for everything to be made right. But what was I saying when I said that? Everything to be made right. That means again, I have a standard that I'm judging right from, and ought to be. Where am I getting that semblance of oughtness from? This is a huge problem for the naturalist, but not for the Christian. You see, if I am feeling guilty on naturalism, where do I bring my guilt? We don't bring it anyway. You bring it to yourself. You can maybe find momentary relief through things like pursuit of money or fame, or you dull the effects through pop psychology or drugs or alcohol, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, you get to the end of yourself, and you find out that there's just more human effort. Does anybody know the name Deion Sanders? Yeah, Deion Sanders. I had the privilege of growing up watching Deion Sanders. He played football and baseball. Sometimes the seasons overlapped, and it's insane. Read his biography; it's really great. His biography in it, he tells of the first time that he won the Super Bowl. So he played for the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Braves, and he won the Super Bowl. And here he is at the pinnacle of his career. Was supposed to all the promises was this is going to deliver everything. He got to the pinnacle of it. You're winning the Super Bowl, and he gets there, and he says in his autobiography that that night, after the after parties, all the accolades, everything, he's sitting in his hotel suite by himself, and he has the Lombardi trophy. And he just hung up the phone. He was on the phone. He ordered himself a customized luxury car, like a Lamborghini or something. I forget what brand. And at that moment, he says, "I hung up the phone," and he said that was the loneliest moment of my life. Why? Because he realized he's only as good as next season. More effort, and there's just a cycle, and we exhaust ourselves in this cycle. If naturalism is true, we're stuck. We're stuck. But naturalism isn't true. I realized that at a certain moment that the guilt, I had someplace to bring it, and his name's Jesus, right? Major issues. You know? So what time am I supposed to be done? What time did I start? Am I supposed to be done at 8? Around 8? Is that when do you guys have guys' night? Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. Do you guys mind if I go like 3 or 4 more minutes, and then I can do Q&A if you want, whatever you want? Dude, so what, midnight? It's good. You guys are crazy. Uh, yeah, you Guys, what we just talked about are the aspects of reality that I bumped into. Um, you know, I what happens with me, guys, is when I drop my presuppositions, walking into reality, I realized that my naturalism didn't make sense of where everything came from. I realized it couldn't make sense of all the stuff I used to object to as being wrong. My naturalism couldn't explain the beauty and wonder of being human, and I had no place to bring my deep-seated understanding of guilt. But on all of these accords, in every way, Christian theism gave me the answer. And what's crazy about it is the answer. It's not just emotionally satisfying. Like I'm just can I just be honest with you guys? The rest of I just want to be honest with you guys while I'm here. Like Christianity doesn't always feel good. Like, can I just be honest? I liked my sin. Like it was fun. That's the problem with sin. Felt good, for a time. I was chasing my sin and pursuing it. I didn't hit rock bottom. I was working in a career that was leading places. My last law firm, guys, we represented people like Kanye West and Michael Jackson and Britney Spears and Justin Bieber and who's the girl that Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton and all these people, Mike Tyson and all of these people, Sugar Ray Leonard. I was meeting these people on a daily basis. Antoine Fuqua, director of Training Day and these other great movies. I was on the fast track to like success. I made money. Oh my gosh. I actually used to make money. It was so much fun. I liked money. Like I could buy stuff. I like stuff. You know, I'm a Christian. Like if somebody asks me why I'm a Christian and I only have like a minute or two, this is what I'm going to say to them, guys. I'm going to say, hey guys, I'm a Christian for one reason. I'm a Christian because I met a girl who bumped into a door. And then I bumped into reality when I went looking for answers to life's most important questions. Guys, the only reason why I'm a Christian is because it's true. I'm a Christian because it's the true story of reality. Hard stop, period. And that means, guys, I'm also open to being wrong. I'm open to somebody being right and proving me wrong. Bring it. Because I don't ever want to run from the truth. That's what I was doing as an atheist, trying to explain away reality. But the best part about being a Christian, guys, is it's true. And we can have confidence in that. We have good reasons. Make sense? You guys good? You want to do some Q&A? One of us does. Who said yeah? Do you want to ask the first question? Yeah, they had their own subjective morality, but a world court still found them guilty. So we can say, great example. Okay. Say you're going out in LA next week and you're talking to somebody about this. I find stories like really help examples. This really helps. If you're talking to somebody about the existence of morality, they're going to say, well, I kind of make up my own moral systems. I want you to say this. Oh yeah, yeah, me too. Do you want to have a really great time? Yeah, sure. Yeah, you know what? I just got a bunch of puppies, and 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 we're gonna go light them on fire. It's it's you have no idea. You don't know the exhilaration until you do it. So do you want to come with me and light some puppies on fire and watch the expression on the person's face and say, and they're gonna look at you and be like, "You're nuts. Like, what's wrong with you?" And then it's like, no. This is a moral system because morality is subjective. You see, um, we have been trained as a culture to think of morality as subjective in general. Like it's really crazy when we sat the Francis Schaeffer. If you guys want to read really great stuff, do you guys read any Francis Schaeffer in this program? You guys should be reading Francis Schaeffer. He's unbelievable. He's dead now, but he was unbelievable. Prophetic. He said that we have an upper story of truth and a lower story of truth. And what we've been doing is by default, we are trained to think of moral claims and religious claims as lower story, meaning subjective, relativistic, where they're not. When I say uh, when I say God exists, it's an objective truth claim. Either God exists or he doesn't. And my personal opinion doesn't change that. So here, this is why I'm belaboring this point. It is either right to kill Jews or it is wrong to kill Jews, just for the fact of being Jews. It can't be, it's not up to you to me. Like, it can't be right for you and wrong for me. Yeah, no, we're talking. You don't raise your hand. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're thinking like a relativist, which is really interesting because it's more than just your opinion. Like when we have conversations, guys, I'd love it if you guys would focus on how you talk and not just what you're saying. When I'm talking to somebody, I never say I think God exists. God exists. Do you see the difference between those two statements? Because it's not a matter of my God, regardless of how badly I want God to exist or not exist, his existence doesn't depend on my opinion of it. God exists is the same type of statement as 2 plus 2 equals 4. It is either 4 or it's not 4. And my opinion about it doesn't matter. So this is why when I say abortion is wrong, it's not I think abortion is wrong. No, abortion is wrong. Why? Well, because it's the taking of an innocent human being, the life of an innocent human being. That's murder. That's not my standard. That's a standard outside of myself. God says murder is wrong. Murder is wrong. It goes against the Ten Commandments. Every culture in the world has a prohibition against murder. Now, we might redefine what certain things are categorized as murder, and that's fine. There's subjectivity there, right? So, but still in place is the idea that this thing, murder, is wrong. There's not one culture in the world that, for example, rewards thievery. Like nobody is training their children. Like no culture at large is training their children to steal. We don't reward that behavior. Why do we think that is? Well, because there's a moral law. Where do we get that moral law from? Well, the Bible tells us. It's written on our hearts. It flows out of the nature and the character of God. And don't shy away from these things, by the way, when you're talking to people. Like you have access to your worldview when you're answering people. You know, there's an objective standard. That's why we don't go burn puppies for fun. That's evil. But the person who's a relativist, they can't say that's evil. They can say they don't like it. They can say it goes against their personal preferences. But if you're going to stick to relativism, all you have is it's like, well, I don't like, I don't know, I don't like banana ice cream. Ugh. But do you see the two statements? The statement "I don't like banana ice cream" is not the same thing as "murder is wrong." They're two different types of statements. One is an objective; it's a claim to objective truth. One is subjective. No, I'm trying here hard. I love this. What do you mean by I don't know what you mean by faith? But you have. Well, no, but you've seen evidences for God's existence. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim his handiwork. Day by day they pour forth speech. Night to night they pour forth knowledge. We can all go outside and witness the existence of God. Not only do we witness it with our eyes, but we witness it with everything around us. The uniformity of nature. For example, the idea that tomorrow is going to be the same as today, meaning the laws of physics are going to hold. Right? All of these things we take on faith. The design of the universe around us, the complexity of things like DNA, the intricacies of the human body, the second law of thermodynamics and these things. These are all pieces of evidence that testify to the existence of God. So while no, we haven't come face to face with God yet, we witness these things. Then not only that, but we also have the testimony from the scriptures, which is a historically reliable book, which we can look into maybe tomorrow. So we trust the testimony of the witnesses that came before us just like we do all other history, you know, so then we can trust that Jesus is who he says he is because we have good reason to believe that the biblical authors are telling us the truth. If Jesus is who he says he is, that means he was raised from the dead. And if he was raised from the dead, that means everything he says is true. So that's where that's where I'd say we have good understanding. We're not believing on a blind faith. It's not stepping without knowing what's there. The author of Hebrews says that faith is the evidence of things unseen. It's based on evidence. So we have a worldview that's firmly planted in evidence. I just offered 3 different ways of thinking of the evidence. Christianity is the best explanation for the universe, the existence of the universe, the order of the universe. Christianity is the best explanation for the problem of evil. You know, not only is it the best explanation, it's the only solution. This is another thing that we all intuitively know. We know when we bump up against bad. We all know it, right? And it's not a matter of your personal opinion. It's a part of reality that exists. So when you bump into it, it's bad. You're like, "That's bad," and we know it. And then when we try to when we try to redefine it, that's when issues happen. And this is where the collective comes together, and it's like, "Absolutely not," which is what happened with Nazi Germany. I mean, we did it here in the I'll get to you in one second so I don't want you to get tired. Um, I'm not being mean, I'm just serious. Uh, uh, but that's why, like, for example, like, this is why we see moral progress. I mean, think about the effects that the Christian worldview has had on the culture around us throughout history. I mean, you eliminate like the reason why we see moral progress, for example, in our country. I'm not like a super like US is a Christian nation. I don't think it is. I'm not sure it ever has been, but it's certainly influenced by Christianity. And nowhere more is that seen in ethics. Because it's in the appeal to Christian ethics where we see the betterment of society. We see like people like Harriet Tubman and William Wilberforce and Martin Luther King Jr. Like these people were thoroughly Christian when they're speaking out for human rights. Even today, who do you think's moving towards human trafficking and these things, these atrocities? And it's not atheists. Like why do we think when you're driving down the street and you see a hospital, it's like Beth Israel or St. Joseph's? It's not like Nietzsche's Center for Neuroscience. You know what I mean? Like, I'm being serious here. So when we look to the betterment of the culture and society, all of this, and the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is all of this is evidence for it's not just your truth. You don't have your truth and I have mine. There's the truth. So I would argue that if I were you, I'd start thinking in those terms. When you say God exists, it's 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's not I think. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. No, he either exists or he doesn't. And now we can talk, right? Because we're placing the claim in its proper position. It's an objective claim, you know? So we should be coming to terms with claims of religion and claims of morality as objective claims. Now, we don't have to I'm not arguing for the morality claims, like I'm not arguing for the morality of a position, but the claim itself is objective. It's not subjective. My opinion about the claim doesn't change the claim. Am I starting to help a little bit? Great question. It doesn't. So, general revelation doesn't give us specifically the God of the Bible. The 3 bumps of reality that I just talked about don't prove Jesus. Where we turn for that is Jesus himself. If you want evidence for specific Christian theism specifically, that's where I would point people to. Now, but that doesn't mean we can't also come to some other truths. Like by what I've said, we can I mean, we can get rid of certain different other types of religions, ones that don't leave room for the existence of the soul or yeah, some weird ones that have some weird type of creation thing. But like, so we'd have to go to Jesus for Christianity. The resurrection's the best argument for Christianity. That's actually a 4th bump. I've been thinking about including this. I've actually been thinking of getting rid of the problem of evil stuff and putting in a section on the resurrection. Because with me, what happened is I bumped into all this stuff and actually the linchpin, and this is a linchpin for everybody, right? Paul says that if Christ has not been raised from the dead, then we are to be pitied. But well, man, we're still in our sins, is what he says. Eat, drink, and be merry. So when I was thinking, like, well, for me, my story ends at the cross. It ends with me doing pretty deep dive into the resurrection of Jesus. And then I realized, like, dude, when I read the Bible, it was crazy. Because I'm reading this thing, it's supposed to be a bunch of myth stories, right? It's supposed to all be made up. Not make sense. It's supposed to be all discombobulated. I was reading it and wasn't agreeing with everything it was saying, but I was like, oh man, kind of sounds like these people are trying to tell me something that they thought was at least true. Not a bunch of like, I wasn't reading like, in a galaxy far, far away, like stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually true, according to the authors. So we turn to the Bible for Christianity. Yeah. The same way, uh, other things. I would say I I have questions about your word certain. Like, is it 100%? Like, for me, it's not. But I have the same confidence that Jesus is who he says he is, that I have that tomorrow morning I'm gonna wake up and go to my rental car out here and it's gonna start. And why is that? Because it's based on previous experiences. So I have a fair amount of confidence that tomorrow morning I'm not gonna be, like, floating in the air because gravity's different. That'd be so cool. But, why do I have confidence? Well, it's because today's like today and yesterday is like yesterday, like today, you know? So it builds on itself. And it's the same thing with the Christian worldview. This is why, honestly, this is so important. This is why when you have questions, we should be talking about them, not suppressing them. For so long, I feel like churches and pastors, and I'm not, I'm a pastor, pastoring's really hard, but like, this is why we need to be having these difficult conversations. And me as a pastor, I'm encouraging my people to doubt, but you want to doubt well. One of the ways you do that is in community like this. You want to make sure you're turning to good resources, exploring these things out because there's really good answers to this stuff. And don't just take my word for it. You don't want to take this guy's word for it. You want to dig in and own it for yourself because then it's going to be part of who you are. You know, you're awesome. What was your first name? Bella. Okay, Bella, you're not allowed to talk for the rest of the time. I'm playing. I'm joking. I'm joking, Bella. Yeah. Imagine if you had your hand raised that entire time. Do you see what I saved you from? Gosh, what a gift. Yeah. I mean, well, our perception of it doesn't have to be 100%. Like, an objectivity, an objective statement doesn't have to do with a percentage. It's a type of claim that's being made, right? There's two ways a claim can be true, right? There's objective truth and subjective truth. When I teach on this, I use the two illustrations. I use ice cream versus insulin, right? So I say the subjective is ice cream claims. Um, the best flavor of ice cream is mint chocolate chip. Period. How dare you say I'm wrong? You know, it's the white. Yeah, yeah, but no, but like, have I ever had what? What's your favorite flavor? Yeah, cookies and cream's okay. I can go with that. But here's the deal. Notice what happens. Like, sorry, when I say my favorite flavor is this, it doesn't make any sense for somebody to tell me I'm wrong. Why? Because it's my opinion. That's what subjective claims are, matter of personal preference or opinion. Subjective claims in an ultimate sense can neither be true or false, right? Because it's up to me. So it's a personal opinion. Objective truth claims are like claims of insulin. Okay, guys, you guys know what insulin is? It helps with diabetes, right? It's a drug that diabetics take to regulate their blood sugar. Now, how do we administer insulin usually? Okay, so I hate needles. I hate them. I'll do everything I can to avoid needles. So if I go to my doctor and I'm talking to him and he's like, John, I hate to tell you this, but you've developed diabetes. And know what though? I know that you hate needles. So instead of insulin, I'm gonna say you should just go home and eat, a pint of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Is that a good doctor or a bad doctor? Why? Homie's gonna kill you. Like he's gonna kill you. So like, don't go to that doctor. And if he's making that decision all because like, hey, I know your personal preference against needles is good. No, 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 no. Because it's an objective claim. Insulin helps diabetes. It's a claim about the object, not the subject, me. No matter how bad I hate it, it still is a reality. So objective truth claims are either true or false. They're either true or false. Now they can be false, but they're either true or false. So we need to start thinking of the types of claims that they have before we start talking about the evidence. So this is really great stuff, guys. So it's to any type of argument, right? There's two paths to every argument. Do you guys know what those paths are? Who's homeschooled? Anybody? Do you guys know this? You guys know the two paths of argumentation and then the evidence. So you have an assertion or claim, proposition, and then you need evidence. All we're doing right now that I'm talking about was just talking about the first part. It's the proposition of the claim. The nature of the claim, is it subjective or objective? So when I make ice cream or insulin, when I say uh, my favorite color is blue, is that a subjective or an objective truth claim? Why is it subjective? It's my personal opinion. Now, when I make this statement, John, me, I am wearing a blue shirt. Is that objective or subjective? Why is it objective? Because it's about the object. It's either blue or it's not. In this case, it's not blue. It's not blue. God exists. God exists. Is that a objective claim or a subjective? Why is it objective? It's about the object. God either exists or he doesn't. Murder is wrong. Is that objective or subjective? Why is it objective? Does your opinion about the object change its nature? No. And we as a culture, even with this example, this brief example, I know that there's people here that, like, when I said murder is wrong, you wanted to be like, no, it's totally subjective. Because we have been conditioned to think moral claims are subjective. This is why, actually, if you I was talking to somebody earlier about this. This is why it's really, really important that we think in these terms and learn to think in these terms and then listen, because it actually frees us up as people, because we're Christians, so we believe in an objective nature, and we also know that our battle is not with people, right? People are special. Why? Their soul is special. They're special because they're made in the image of God. So our battle isn't with image bearers, it's with their ideas. And we know when I say abortion is wrong, it's an objective truth claim. So that means it's a claim independent. I'm not looking at the person subjectively. It's about the claim, and I can separate the two. But relativists have trouble separating the two because they make these claims about themselves. So if you're a relativist and you're thinking like, I think abortion is acceptable, you're knitting that to your identity and who you are, where we don't have to do that. We can place it up here in ether and I can separate the two. No, you're valuable because you're made in God's image. You're just broken. You know, it's like this. Okay. Oh man, I'm going to share stuff them tomorrow. It doesn't matter. So like, well, it's like this. Like when you come to look at people, guys, like really try to transform the way that you look at people, because it's going to change how you interact with them. Right. People, the Bible describes people before Christ. They're blind, right? They're veiled. They can't see. And if you're walking, like, I don't know, down, say you go down to the lake tomorrow, whatever, and you see a blind guy wandering around, he's like bumping into stuff, knocking trash cans over. You're going to walk up to him and be like, what are you doing, blind man? Get out of my clean space, you idiot. You're bumping into everything. No, I hope not. If you do, we need to talk about something else. Like it's going to be a problem. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to walk up to him. You're going to go over to him. You're going to say, hey, I realize like you're having difficulty navigating the space. You're blind. Can I help you? Do you want to take my arm? Tell me where you're going and maybe I can help get you there. It's the same thing with people, because people, they're navigating this space, the world around us, and they're blind. So the people that we're trying to talk to out on the streets of LA or in your hometown, in your college campus, they're blind. So they're bumping into reality. And when they bump into reality, they make a huge mess. They make a mess of reality. But we're here as ambassadors of Christ, as representatives, and we can help clean up that mess as we partner with God in the restitution of their souls. And then God removes those veils, and then they too see. So they're no longer blind. Does that make sense? I can see you're not satisfied. That was really good. 100%. Yeah, I'm interested with these percentages. You know, the second, like you guys like about certainty and percentages. If you were to ask me, I think I might have said this after the atheist role play. If you were to ask me, like, John, what percentage are you sure that Jesus was raised from the dead? That's like an almost an impossible question for me to answer. I'm fairly certain. Could I be wrong? Yeah. Do I think I'm wrong? Obviously not. You know, honestly, the percentage might like that God exists. It might depend on how well my kids are behaving that day. You know, like when they're like screaming through life and they're amazing and everything's going great. Yeah, God's definitely there. You know, when they're not, you know, it's harder. So this is the thing. This is the thing. If life is like this, you know, and that's why I think our trust in God and belief in his promises, like my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. Like these things are really important, because as we learn to trust God and we understand God in his nature, sometimes we have to fall back on our intellect and not our emotions. Emotions are fantastic. Like they make life enjoyable, and I really like emotions, but it's facts that make life livable. So what we do is when we're in hard times, we rely on the facts. And this happens to me all the time. Like, uh, man, my Bible's not out, but like read the Psalms, right? So David was wrestling with this all the time. My God, oh God, where are you? Mine enemies ensnare me and seek to devour me like lions. He cries out constantly for God, like, where the hell are you? You know, and it's okay to be doing this and process this stuff as Christians. And so he was like this. But what we do is we fall back on our knowledge. For me, at least, the intellect helps me. No, you never do. Well, I don't. Sure. That's where our intellect comes in the fact, like, so when I'm wavering in my feelings, right? That's where I rely on the things like Christian. This is why I think Christian apologetics is so important to the church. I rely on my dependence on God, like my knowledge of God. Like, I slow myself down. This is just my process, right? I slow myself down and say, okay, I know God exists because stuff exists. I mean, no God, no stuff. I know God is who he says in the Bible because I know I can trust the Bible because I've done the work, because I know that it's a historically reliable document because of the textual criticism. You know, I know that I can rely on the testimony of the eyewitnesses, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I know that because the nature of the Bible, the way that it was written, I know that they're supported by independent third party sources that are unfriendly and often. I know Tacitus reports on the life of Jesus, including some of his miracles. I know Josephus is the same, an ancient Jewish historian. Like, so I mean, I don't like go through each of this, but I know this in the background. So I know Jesus is raised, even when I don't feel it. So that's where I rely on. Now, this certainty in 100%, I don't know what that gets us, to be honest with you. Um, no, I get that too. Yeah, yeah, it's there. Well, I kind of do. It's not there for me. Um, I mean, I think it's faith, but it's not blind faith. It depends what you mean by faith. I don't, this is such a great question. The This is why it's so important to pursue God and not take a speaker whose dynamics performance, or not take a pastor's word for it, or your parents. This is why it's so important for you to develop your own relationship. And sometimes it's not easy. Oftentimes it's not easy. But and this is why, like if yeah, if people are asking me like, well, how can I come to a better understanding of God, like when he's like, and feel him and have a relationship with him? It's not rocket science. It's just saying stuff that sometimes we don't want to hear, or certainly don't want to do. We got to read your Bible. I'm not saying you got to do, like, these aren't things, like, it's not legalism. It's not to be saved. It's because we have been saved. If you want to get to know your creator, you need to read about him. He's chosen to he's chosen us his word, special revelation through the word and through Jesus. You got to pray. You've got to spend time in solitude. Like, that's one of the great things about up here. Like, these devices aren't as much of a distraction. They still are for you guys. I know they are. Some of you working around it, I'm sure. But like, we've got to set time aside for God and make him a priority, even when we don't feel it, even when we're not 100% sure. So we chase after these things. We do spiritual disciplines like reading and praying and writing. We journal. That's not my gifting. My kids all journal. It's not even something I taught them. I don't know where they picked them from. Um, but you chase God in these ways, and what happens is this is any relationship. Like, why do you guys trust your? Well, some of you don't trust your parents for good reason, probably. But those of you who have good homes, like, why do you trust your parents? Because you know them and you've spent time with them, and you know how they're going to act and interact and react. So you trust it. Like, why do you trust your friends? Well, because you spend time with them, you get to know them. And it's the same thing with God. So if you want to learn, like, that's like the good stuff. That's the real yummy stuff, like the amazing stuff. What I did, and you don't need to do this, guys. I'm not expecting anybody to do this. I'm a skeptic, right? At hat, I am. Like, I don't do the touchy feely stuff a ton. I was friends with a guy who, like, was a prayer warrior. I mean, this guy could pray. And when my prayers were like, thank you, Jesus, amen. And I wanted to pray like this guy. So what I did is I asked him, I'm like, how do you pray like this? Like, I don't get it. And he's like, dude, same thing I'm telling you, not rocket science. He said, what I do is I take an egg timer, not a phone, an egg timer. And he said, I used to set it for 2 minutes, and I would pray for 2 solid minutes. And at first, it's like pulling teeth. It's like you're looking at the egg timer through one eye, like, oh my gosh, it's only been 45 seconds. Are you kidding me? and you're learning intimacy. You're learning how to be intimate with God. And then once you get the 2 minutes down, you set out to five. And once you do five, you do 10. Once you do 10, you do 20. Once you do 20, you do 45. And then I was up to an hour of I did what he said. And then you're praying for an hour. Now it's the point, no lie. When I pray at work at staff meetings, my boss, she actually had to pull me aside when they first hired me and be like, dude, you're praying too long. Because I would pray for 20 minutes because it's just natural for me. Because I've done work, I've cultivated the relationship. Sometimes I feel like we think we can microwave intimacy with God. We can't. God is constantly there. He's constantly yearning for us to come to him. So we need to just go to him. And it's not always going to feel it. Oftentimes you're going to be like, David, like, where are you? Like, why am I spending all this time crying out to you when you're not answering? But what we do is we keep doing it and we cultivate that relationship. Our Holy Father in heaven, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come to your throne once again, Lord. Please, Lord, don't ever let this get lost on us, what we're doing. As we sit here in the comfort of this beautiful cabin, in the view of this beautiful setting, we are petitioning the creator and sustainer of all things. Even as we're praying right now, you are simultaneously holding every molecule together while also causing each and every one of ours breath to be inhaled and out. You are truly our all in all, and we praise you. I thank you for the conversation. I'm really looking forward to more, Lord, and would you allow us to move towards each other in kindness, respect, and love? And again, the goal is so modest, God. Tonight, in a couple hours, when we all go to bed, would we look just a little bit more like Jesus? Transform us more and more into his image, Lord. That's our goal. And help us love you more and each other better. In Christ's name, amen.